Dr. Chandler. Welcome to my course video lecture notes. Please print the notes provided with the video and create your own notes to get the most out of this lecture. This lecture summarizes humanistic psychology, also known as phenomenology, meaning that human experience is subjective and can only be understood through personal interpretation of direct experience. Again, personality is the unique core set of characteristics that influence the way we think, act, and feel. Personality characteristics are relatively consistent and stable across situations throughout the lifespan. The discipline of psychology includes many theories of personality. Each theory attempts to explain why we are the way we are or how we are. We've already discussed biological, social, cognitive, and behaviorism theories of personality. We will focus on the humanistic theory of personality in this video lecture, and psychoanalytic and trait theories in following video lectures. Humanistic theory is associated with Carl Rogers. According to Rogers, personality is driven by healthy striving to fulfill one's individual, unique potential versus the need for approval from others, called positive regard in this theory. Humanistic psychology considers the ways in which we view ourselves in relation to others and concludes that we each have an awareness of ourselves and our life that leads us to search for meaning and self-worth. Humanistic means human-centered, that humans are born to strive for their own personal perfectibility, and sometimes we lose ourselves through our efforts to be more like others or to please others in our social world. The humanistic theory of psychology is also referred to as third force because it offers an alternative to behaviorism and psychoanalytic theories of personality. This is Rogers' humanistic model that you will be asked to diagram, label, and describe. There is the real self, the person I think I am, and there's the ideal self, the person I wish I was. It doesn't matter which circle is the real self or the ideal self. What does matter in this diagram is the extent a person's perception of self resembles the way he or she would like to be, which is known as congruence. We must either accept our real self a great deal or change to be more like our ideal self. Our self-concept is our subjective perception of who we are and what we are like, and our self-concept is learned from our interactions with others. Rogers believed that psychological disorders stem from unrealistic conditions of worth in early life experience. Client-centered therapy seeks to change such beliefs primarily by offering unconditional acceptance from the therapist. According to the humanistic model, personality is derived from the sum of unconditional positive regard we've experienced. Unconditional positive regard means accepting all parts of personality. Unconditional positive regard is contrasted with conditional positive regard, meaning to be alienated from oneself. Here, acceptance is based on conditions. If this and if that, then acceptance might follow. Rogers believed that we are born with an innate need for positive regard, for acceptance, sympathy, and love from others. Ideally, according to Rogers, positive regard received from parents needs to be unconditional, that is, independent of how the child behaves. Unconditional positive regard communicates that the person is inherently worthy of love, regardless of accomplishments or behavior. Additional concepts of humanistic theory include phrases such as here and now or be here now. The focus on the present moment, not past experiences or future outcomes. The idea is to be open to the constant flow of existence. fully functioning person is used to mean a psychologically healthy individual able to enjoy life as completely as possible, to accept oneself, which is to be nonconforming, not trying to be like anyone else or grasping for achievements to gain the respect of others. In this view, achievements occur because that is what it is in the person that must develop of its own accord to become a fully functioning person. Abraham Maslow said that humanistic psychology should be the study of healthy individuals rather than to study disorder and disease. He said that personally and socially significant problems should be the focus of study rather than the mechanistic reductionism of what can be objectively measured. He is probably referring to behaviorism here. Maslow believed that the major concern of psychology should be the dignity and the enhancement of people. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one starts at the bottom, and as with the climber that you'll see in the diagram, one must pull oneself up to the top. The bottom of the hierarchy is physiological needs, such as food and shelter necessary for basic survival. Once one is not concerned with getting their next meal or getting out of the weather, they seek safety and security. When these needs are satisfied, then the person is consumed with the need to be cared for and to belong to specific social groups. Once a person feels accepted into the social group, then they want to be held in high esteem in that group, to have others seek their advice, for example. Finally, if ever, one is positioned to attain self-actualization. According to Maslow, the self-actualizing person is reaching the highest level of personal development and has fully realized his or her own true potential as a human being. This may be an elitist theory, as many people in our world do not have the possibility of meeting their physiological needs or their safety and security needs. They spend so much of their energy on surviving, they have little opportunity for self-actualization, despite the major tenet of humanistic psychology that humans possess an inner drive to grow, improve, and use their potential to the fullest. This is the reason Maslow stated, "You will either step forward into growth or you will step backward into safety." An irony of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that those recognized as self-actualized live with very basic survival requirements met and do not seek to belong to groups. They look to themselves for self-esteem and self-respect. You'll see this in this list of adjectives describing the self-actualizing person. Having a fresh outlook, being spontaneous, self-accepting, non-conforming, problem-centered, having a need for privacy, being independent, and having democratic values, meaning you're not trying to impose your will on others. Having creativity, especially for problem solving, being interested in the welfare of others, and of course being open to experience, especially new experiences, living in the here and now, trusting your own judgment. And humanistic psychology in general is correlated with the ideas of emotional sensitivity, being in touch with your feelings. With the humanistic model, the nature of psychopathology or illness is explained by the incongruity between the real self and the potential to become the desired self, with an overdependence on others for direction in life and self-esteem. Therapy fosters self-determination and expands awareness of the true self because of the belief in subjectivity of human experience. The therapist is viewed as incapable of deciding what clients' problems are or solutions to clients' problems. The therapist is empathic and genuine to get at the client's feelings. The client is encouraged to focus on current situations rather than on the past. Here we see that unrealistic conditions of self-worth based upon conditional positive regard causes alienation from the self with a distorted self-concept. With client-centered therapy, the client directing the treatment and the therapist giving unconditional positive regard, the result is supposed to be enhanced adjustment and progress toward self-fulfillment. Humanistic psychology made treatment for all accessible with 12-step programs that emerge from the model of leaderless groups where no individual has the answers for other group members, but each can be supportive as each grows toward psychological health. This theory spawned encounter or T groups. Therapy of humanistic psychology consists of client or person-centered counseling, described as genuine, authentic self-disclosure of the client to the therapist. The therapist reflects back client's statements to get at underlying emotion, which is thought to support a client to understand how they really feel, and lead the client to find their own direction in the therapeutic process. Humanistic psychology promoted and popularized many forms of group therapy, including touchy-feely marathons, blind walks, and forms of group movement and dance. Humanistic treatment uses psychodrama, where a person responds to someone as if that person were present, perhaps an alcoholic parent, and enacts a monologue to address unresolved conflicts. 12-step programs such as AA are another example of leaderless groups that allow psychological treatment to be affordable and available for all. Many of these kinds of group options were popularized in the 60s and 70s. For a fun introduction to this philosophy and therapy, see the movie Bob, Carol, and Ted and Alice. Though criticized for its reliance on unscientific, unverifiable information and its vague, almost philosophical formulations, humanism offers a distinctive view of abnormal behavior that can be described as naive because of the insistence that all strive for good with no evil motivations. This is the reason this therapy is contraindicated for use with those in criminal populations. You can see how this self is inflated with individuals who have a character or personality disorder, bloated with their own self-importance and entitlement. Humanistic therapies can be recommended for neurotic disorders, as the focus on the self here can bring more balance and emotional health, as you see in this diagram. You will need to practice this humanistic diagram, labeling the parts and being able to write a description of the theory. You will also have test questions on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but you will not be asked to diagram, label, and describe the hierarchy.